A congressional map-making deadline looms and tax cuts for most everyone in the House budget. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Laura Bischoff, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News. Jackie Borcher, Columbus Bureau Chief for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Derek Clay, Democratic strategist. And Mike Gonidakis, Republican strategist. As it stands right now, Ohio lawmakers have 5 weeks to draw new congressional district maps. The state is appealing a federal court decision that ordered the new map after finding the current districts are extremely gerrymandered. The court this week denied a request to delay that order to redraw the map. The state will now ask the U.S. Supreme Court to delay the order until at least the High Court decides other gerrymandering cases. Jackie Borchard, is there any movement at all, even quietly at the State House, to start drawing a map just in case the court decisions don't go their way?
Short answer, no. Democrats did say this week that they want to get going. They want to get started. Of course, the Republicans are the ones that are defending the maps in court. Although House Speaker Larry Householder did say he woke up in the middle of the night thinking about squiggly lines. So, they have a lot of stuff on their plate right now. This is not really the best time to cram in, an unconstitutional map redrawing. They have got the state budget going on, and the House just passed that. It's moving over to the Senate. They've got an energy subsidy bill that's very highly contentious. So they have a lot going on. Although plaintiffs will say, in this case, will say they don't really need that much time. We've got computers and computer software that can easily draw a map that meets constitutional muster in a matter of days or even weeks.
Yeah, a friend of mine suggested just type in Ohio congressional districts into Google and see what they come up with, and see what kind of map they draw. Do people at the State House, Laura, feel that the courts will step in, or is it a toss-up? What's the feeling down there on the chances of this appeal?
I think it depends on who you ask. I think the Democrats are really hopeful, but I think the Republicans are also feeling pretty good that they can either run out the clock on it or, kind of just do, they're going to win the next level up. They just have to get to the next level up. But tick-tock, June 14th is coming quick. Yeah. And Jackie's right there. They do have kind of a full plate right now, but that software is really powerful. They can just get started if they are so inclined.
Mike, this could be chaos if they are ordered to redo the map. Start in Pennsylvania. That was a state Supreme Court decision in 2018.
They won't be. I predict the United States Supreme Court will grant our stay, and then they're going to ultimately rule by June 30th, 5-4, 6-3 decision, that the district courts or even the state court in Pennsylvania cannot force the legislature. We have 3 co-equal branches of government on how to draw the lines. Now, look, here's the thing we should all be worried about. Why June 14th? What's so special about that date? I'm going to tell you right now. This 3-judge panel wasn't the entire Sixth Circuit, just this 3-judge panel is trying to get in before the United States Supreme Court, their big brother, rules because they know they're going to be overruled. Their ruling is not going to be upheld. Our lines are going to stay. The voters voted by a 3-1 margin to redo this in 2020, and we have a bipartisan effort. A supermajority bipartisan group came together to pass this, got it on the ballot. We are constitutional. We are not redrawing lines, and the United States Supreme Court's going to uphold this. I guarantee it.
That 3-judge panel, 2 Democrats appointees and 1 Republican appointee.
Yes,
so they were more or less bipartisan, and Michigan had a similar ruling just a few days before Ohio's ruling came in. Derek, Democrats hopeful they can get the maps redrawn?
Absolutely.
2018?
Absolutely.
2020.
The voters are the ones that lose in this because these lines that have been drawn are disenfranchised voters. Bottom line.
I would say
disagree with that?
I take offense to that respectfully, Derek, because these lines were created by a supermajority bipartisan group of legislators, 132 members, 8 years ago. Supermajority voted for these lines. Voters have voted on it the past 3-4 elections. Keep in mind, Marcy Kaptur came in, and you can Google this. She wants the snake by the lake. It was her who asked for the snake by the lake.
And Joyce Beatty likes her district,
She
too.
loves her district, too. It's not
disenfranchising.
disenfranchising anyone. This was voted on Democrats and Republicans, supermajority in the legislature voted.
So you're telling me your party, telling me your party has not gerrymandered these lines?
No, they haven't. In fact, we created one for Joyce Beatty, just for her.
But that's that's still gerrymandering.
No, thank
Creating
you.
the lines
Thank
that serve a
you.
political
Thank
purpose
you.
is
Not
still
to,
gerrymandering.
no, it's to create a district for the residents of Franklin County, so you don't have back then Pat Tiberi or now Troy Balderson representing the people. You have one for them. Look, when they divided Franklin County, they said it's not fair. You're separating African American voters. Then you create one just for Franklin County, and then they say it's not fair. You're packing them all together. So you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
The reason why that district was created for Congresswoman Beatty is to protect, at the time, Congressman Tiberi, and to protect Congressman Stivers. That's the reason why that district was created.
It's packing and cracking, Laura. It's been going on for decades.
And the people who are happiest with these are the incumbent lawmakers, plain and simple. That's why Joyce Beatty, Marcy Kaptur may have supported that particular district, or Jim Jordan loves his district, or Stivers likes his. I mean, it satisfies the incumbents, and the question is, are the politicians picking their constituents, or the constituents picking their politicians?
Don't forget, it was Steve Austria, a Republican, who got drawn out last time when we created Joyce Beatty. So we never that little fact keeps getting missed, that we lost a Republican and the Democrats gained a Democrat seat.
The bottom line is there are 16 seats, 12 Republicans to 4 Democrats, even though the state is 50-50.
Well, if you look at the overall election,
if it's 55-65, it still wouldn't be close.
all statewide elections
Right,
continue to
45.
go to the GOP minus Sherrod Brown every single cycle, and that's not a gerrymandered, that's a statewide vote, as Dave Yost, our great Attorney General, has pointed out.
I think the larger point is the 12-4 split hasn't changed. Since these maps have been in place since the 2012 election, they haven't changed, and you've had almost all of the same incumbents stay in their seats that time. And so that's kind of where the argument, also plaintiffs in this case are voters who live in each of those districts who say, I go to the polls, I vote, but my vote doesn't really matter because my representative has already been chosen for me.
Yeah, if you look pre-2012, there was even Republicans and Democrats in the House. And to Jackie's point, after the 2012 maps were drawn, it's been 12-4, and it's been like that by a 12-4 margin ever since.
Right. Let's get to this is a spirit of bipartisan at the State House. Even though Republicans dominate the Ohio House, the spirit of bipartisanship continues. The House approved its version of the 2-year state budget with lots of Republican and Democratic votes. It's a big budget. It's about $70 billion a year over 2 years. Here are some of the highlights. Everyone would get a 6.5% state income tax cut. Those making less than roughly $22,000 a year would pay no income taxes. The state business tax exemption would only apply to income up to $100,000, so that's a tax hike for those making more than that. The House plan increases spending on education, it increases spending on children's services, and it raises teachers' base salaries from $20,000 a year to $30,000 a year. Laura Bischoff, Democrats seem pretty happy with this budget. What's going on down there?
Well, you just listed off a lot of things that certainly appeals to them. For example, this reducing that business tax exemption, where you could not pay any taxes on your business income up to $250,000, lowering that down to $100,000. That was a big win for the Democrats. It's something that they've been pushing for a long time. They didn't like it from the get-go. There's more money in there for indigent defense when you can't afford to pay for your own attorney. There's more money in there for foster care. There's more money for mental health services for kids in K-12. And it's interesting that there's been this shift. I mean, in previous budgets under the Kasich administration, there was a heavy focus on reducing business taxes, reducing business regulation, et cetera. And this seems to pivot and look at low-income, middle-income families and what do they need. And I asked Speaker Householder about that, and he said it's time. The people who are really hurting from the addiction crisis they need help, and this budget tries to accomplish that.
Is that what's driving this, Jackie? Is just simply a sense of fairness in the part of Republican leadership, or the Democrats have some clout because they helped elect the speaker? Or is it a combination of the two?
I mean, what Laura just said mirrors kind of, what Governor DeWine introduced. His budget was very much focused on children and social services, and they, the House didn't really take much away from that. Where under Governor Kasich, he would introduce these bold policy proposals in his budget, and it got to the point where the House Republicans kind of, well, that's nice, but here's our own new budget here that we're going to propose. So it seems like there's more of a atmosphere of working together. And of course, remember that Speaker Householder was elected with the help of Democrats. And there's some questioning at the time, how long is that going to last with this spirit of bipartisanship? And we've seen it here in this budget, where you have had many Democrats voting for this budget. And I think there were even more Republicans who voted against it than Democrats who voted against it.
There were 9 votes against
Yeah.
it, eight of whom were Republicans, and 1 Democrat voted against it. That was Mike Skindell, a Democrat from Lakeland,
So who's
Lakewood.
who's not happy with this budget? Obviously, the folks who make between $100,000 and $250,000 who are getting that tax break, they're not happy with it.
Yeah, I would say people, business owners are not happy with it, or at least the tax credit piece of it. Small business chambers, et cetera.
Yeah, first of all, kudos to Speaker Householder, who convinced every Democrat but one to vote for a tax cut for the rich. Pretty impressive. I haven't seen that in Ohio before. But here's the thing that we got to keep in mind, Mike. We have a booming economy in Ohio. Unemployment's at a historical low. We have more jobs than we have people willing to take them. And just today, Gongwer put out state revenues, that means our tax receipts, blow past estimates. Things are going so well. That's with this great small business tax cut that we have in here. Why do we have a consumer-driven economy? When you have more money, you can buy more goods.
So you think they should keep that up to $250,000?
Absolutely. What I think is going to happen is they're going to settle in between the $100,000 that the House passed and the $250,000 where it's currently at. Probably $175,000 to $190,000 is where ultimately will be. Why are things going so well in Ohio right now, and you can't deny the fact that the economy is good? It's because of tax cuts. If we why get rid of them? We have plenty of money, according to Gongwer, according to the state's reports. Why do we have to get rid of the tax cuts?
What about wages? The wage gap. Wages have crept up a bit with lower income folks, minimum wage folks. They've crept up a bit, but still not closing that gap completely.
Right, and that's a chronic problem. And Ohio's recovery, yes, we are in recovery. We have low income, but a lot of people don't have the high-paying jobs that they used to have, and that has been a chronic problem. They have to have multiple jobs, and I think that yes, unemployment's low. If tax policy were the only thing that drives whether or not we have jobs, then we would have no taxes at all. And I think that to say that, well, we have, the reason why we have all these jobs is because of these tax cuts it only tells a very small section of the story.
According to Secretary of State Frank LaRose, we are hitting historic numbers of new businesses because his office.
But critics say that
so we have
that's
new
because
businesses because of low taxes.
No,
because
no.
of low taxes.
Those aren't
People are
necessarily
coming
new
here.
businesses. Those are business filings. Like I can go to the Secretary of State's office and start my own business and just give it a
that's a new
name,
business.
but I'm not actually going to do anything with that
Yeah, it
business
doesn't mean
name.
you're
It's just
generating revenue just because you made a tax filing.
And the other thing is that the critics of this $250,000 tax break say that a lot of businesses are reconstituting themselves as LLCs, sole proprietorships, partnerships, so that they can go and qualify for that and just not pay taxes on the first $250,000 in revenue.
The state doesn't need the money. We're exceeding all of our estimates in revenue. Why not give it back to the people who generate it?
Well, this does have a tax cut in it. Has a 6.6% across the board tax cut.
Derek, on that, I think the House's original plan didn't have as much of a tax cut for the upper incomes. This is 6.6% across the board. Very low income, pay no taxes. Does that benefit upper incomes more than the middle class? If a guy making $1 million a year gets 6.6% and somebody making, 50,000 gets the same 6.6.
Yeah, I think the speaker's looking out for the middle class, and he's trying to work with.
So you don't mind the rich guy
Democrats.
getting the same break as the guy in the middle?
No.
I think it's a package that appeals to Republicans and to Democrats, and it has pieces of tax policy that appeals to both parties.
6.6, is that gonna? We actually might feel that one in our paycheck. That's a decent chunk. In the past, they've been like 2.5% a year, and then 2.5%.
I don't know. I mean, 2004 was it? They did a 21% across the board state income tax cut, and then the economy tanked anyway.
All right.
So,
As part of the budget proposal, the House eliminated the state's film tax credit. The program gives production companies filming in Ohio a tax refund. It costs the state $40 million a year. Advocates say it pays for itself when TV and movie producers shoot scenes in Ohio. They hire local workers. They eat at local restaurants. Detractors question the return on investment. They say the state should keep the money and spend it elsewhere. Mike Anadakis, a lot of states are doing this. They're looking at this film tax credit again, thinking it's kind of a giveaway, not necessarily kind of a frill. What do you think? Should Ohio keep it to get the movies still filming here?
Yep, I think we should absolutely keep it because of the return on investment. I think we should do tax credits and tax deductions and opportunities if there's a return on the investment, the ROI. I sat in these hearings and they've had people way smarter than me come in and say for every $2.01 and for every dollar in tax credit, you're getting a 2.01 cent return in Ohio. We have thousands of Teamsters that have full-time jobs now in the Cleveland, Mansfield area, Shawshank Redemption, other places, Cincinnati. They have jobs now. So what the Senate did this week when the House eliminated it, the Senate passed Senate Bill 37, which reaffirmed the $40 million tax credit, but said, hey, we're going to put more strings on it. So if you're not creating jobs, if you're not bringing revenue, there's no tax credit. But if you're doing all that, then you can get it. So it's not just free money to Robert De Niro and the people out in Hollywood.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. That's one time that you and I agree, Mike. I think the tax credit is needed in Ohio. As Mike said, there was a study done by Cleveland State University that said for every dollar that's spent on the credit, $2.01 is spent in Ohio. So when you think about all the movie sets that come in town, all the local businesses the restaurants, the hotels, all of the auxiliary businesses that benefit from this, I think it's a good thing.
So why are lawmakers looking to get rid of it? They just don't like movies, or they don't believe those numbers?
Well, I mean, yeah, that same study, though, also found that over 4 years, the state of Ohio gave out about $117 million worth of these credits, but actual tax revenues reaped from it were about $22 million. So when you're looking at, the jobs created, are they're full-time equivalent jobs? They're not necessarily full-time permanent jobs?
Yeah,
and
the run is short.
Right. And, the film advocates in the state say that it has really helped them build up more of those permanent jobs in those places. And, then you build up a history with the film industry and they will want to come back. But you're right. I mean, other states, Michigan, I think, just eliminated theirs. And, when budgets are tight and you're looking for revenue, this is an easy one to just cross off the list.
Any social undertones to this? I know that some movie companies are saying we're not going to film in states where you have strict anti-abortion laws or don't have enough LGBT protections, things like that. Is there any undertones here for this tax credit, anti-Hollywood undertones to eliminating this tax credit? Have you heard anything?
Not that I'm aware of, but that is happening in other states.
Yeah, it's more boycotting the states, even though they have the tax credits. All right. There is hope for Lordstown's laid-off auto workers and their neighbors. The recently closed GM plant could have a new owner. President Trump lit the optimism fuse with a surprise tweet saying General Motors CEO Mary Barra told him GM would sell the Lordstown plant to electric truck manufacturer Workhorse. But there is a long way to go. Workhorse, which is based in Cincinnati, would have to win a contract to make postal trucks. Surprised by the announcement, Governor DeWine tapped the brakes on the ribbon-cutting plans.
As far as Lordstown, this is probably not yet the day to celebrate. This is a day where we may be moving forward. We're certainly not going to sit around and not try to make things happen.
I don't sense a lot of excitement there, Derek, but it would be great news for Lordstown if this plant were to come back, but it's a long way to go until that point.
Long way to go. If they get this contract from the U.S. Postal Service, obviously that's going to be a win for the Lordstown community, but it's not a guarantee. So we got to wait and see. I think the state really needs to continuously, vigorously try to court other companies to come to that location, because you can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Did you guys were at the State House? It was Tourism Day. Apparently, Mike DeWine got the call while he was at an event. Did the president kind of jump the gun here a bit?
Well, I think that President Trump wants to promote big wins in Midwestern states and in places like the Mahoning Valley. The fact that GM was closing was kind of a big blow to his narrative that he's bringing auto manufacturing jobs back and that the economy is super duper under him, and so to be able to say that they have a potential fix for this was a big win for the president. And I think he loves Twitter, of course, and he likes to break news on Twitter. So the fact that he tweeted it out is not surprising.
And he has a credibility problem as well.
But then once you peel back the details, it doesn't look it's not a done deal yet. Like you said, a lot of it is hinging, and also the Lordstown plant has like 1,400 jobs that they're losing.
For one shift, yeah.
And this would be 450 jobs. Now it could, depending on if they get that postal truck deal could, grow. But again, there's a lot of loose ends to it.
Yeah.
The GM workers, I mean, the laid off workers, they want GM to come back and build another car or another truck there. They don't want this.
Right, and there's a lot of ifs in this scenario, but that's a really big one, is that all of this hinges on the UAW contract renegotiations this fall. Talks will start this summer, and the UAW came out with only one statement on that after Trump's tweet, and it was, we have not changed our position. We still want GM to put another product in here. They want to remain GM employees. They've been GM employees the whole time. So that's their preference. And like Laura said, the more that we find out about this deal, which I don't know exactly what happened, but I can imagine that the president was talking with GM CEO Mary Barra and then hung up the phone and instantly went to tweet about the great news before she could even call Mike DeWine.
Right.
I think that was probably her next call. But Workhorse is a startup, and they've lost. My colleague Alex Coolidge at the Enquirer, went through some of their annual filings, and they've lost, $150 million since they started up in 2007. They made, I think, $760-some thousand last year, which is about a third of what you expect from your regular old McDonald's franchise. So they're not even, as a company, there's some questions there whether they can take this on, even as a minority stakeholder. And then, a lot of it hinges on this Postal Service contract.
So, Mike, it's great news right now if it happens. It's great news for the president, but does he run the risk of being worse for him if it doesn't come true by the time Election Day rolls around?
No, because I think what's going to happen is look, let's not gloss over the fact that hundreds of millions of more dollars are coming into Ohio, according to the GM CEO in Parma and other Northeast Ohio Rust Belt areas. 700 million. Thank you, Jackie. So the president talked about Lordstown, but he also talked about the 700 million too. So we're having more jobs, more investment by GM in Ohio. Number one. Number two, UAW better get out of the way, because if you ask a family who's looking to find their next job that they might have a chance to go get a job now at Lordstown again, making electric trucks, they're going to go take those jobs. Okay, whether the union cares about it or not, they'll cross the union line.
One of the things we don't know.
So why is the union doing this? I mean, why is the union that represents these families that have lost their job? Why are they throwing a cold blanket on this?
Because they don't know how much the Workhorse jobs are going to pay, and the GM jobs do pay well.
Right.
Or how many Workhorse jobs there might be.
Well, there's currently 0, and they got a chance to bring some there. Let's do it.
But you could argue that Workhorse goes in, takes over the plant, where 5 years down the road, GM, or even 2 years down the road, GM says, I'm going to put another car there that would have employed 3,000 workers. I mean, long term, the plant is equipped to build cars like Chevy Cruze now, or a small SUV, and employ thousands and thousands of workers instead of 400. So
this is a victory. Let's celebrate it. It's cautiously optimistic, and let's move forward.
Not a victory yet.
It's an announcement. It's a sign of optimism, sign of hope, I guess you put it that way. All right. Ohio is yet to see widespread measles outbreaks as other states have seen. The good news comes despite the fact that measles vaccination rates for Ohio kids have declined by 7% over the past few years. Ohio is one of 17 states that allows parents to claim religious or personal objections and exempt their kids from school vaccine requirements. Some states are looking to eliminate those exemptions. An Ohio lawmaker wants to strengthen ours. State Rep Don Manning wants to require schools to inform parents of the exemption law. The Youngstown area Republican says he's worried that schools might be hiding that information. Laura Bischoff, we haven't been in New York, California, some of the Northwest states have had big outbreaks. We haven't here, even though our vaccination rates have come down. Where do we stand in all this, politically and socially?
Well, I think there's a kind of a tug of war within the State House about whether to do this House Bill 132, which would mandate that the schools, when they send out the "Hey, go get your kid vaccinated" notice, that they also say, by the way, you can claim this exemption, this exemption, this exemption, and here's how to do it. And public health advocates are saying, well, that's going to encourage more people to invoke the exemption. And, for a lot of people, getting your kids vaccinated, it's kind of a pain in the neck, and you got to, get over to the doctor's office and get all the documents. And sometimes they may have already had their kid vaccinated, and they just say, like, no, I don't have the records. I'm just going to sign my kid in. And the problem is you have bad data from the schools to the Department of Health. Yeah. And if there is an outbreak at a certain school, then it's very problematic to track like who is or isn't vaccinated.
So should we be making all kids get vaccinated regardless of religious or personal exemptions? Mike?
Well, Olivia and Isaac Anadakis are both vaccinated, and I think it's a good thing, and I think everyone should be vaccinated forcing someone, I don't know. That's an ethical debate that we need to have. But I think everyone should be vaccinated, starting with their children, of course. Forcing, I don't know. Mike.
What about this difference between religious and personal, Derek?
You know,
Personal seems very vague. Religious,
Yeah.
You can see that.
I mean, the question is, at what point does religious freedom go over into the boundary of putting everybody at risk? I respect that people have their religious freedoms, but getting vaccinated, I believe in it, but and kids should be vaccinated.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our off-the-record parting shots. Mike Onadakis, you're up first.
Mike, according to Columbus Dispatch, $870,000 by the Columbus School Board was given to a failed radio station that's supposed to be dedicated and earmarked to go to teachers and educating kids. It was done behind closed doors, violated Open Meetings Act. I predict Auditor of State Keith Faber will be investigating this, and there could be criminal indictments.
Not our radio station. We pay our bills. Derek.
First of all, happy Mother's Day. It was a victory for Columbus. This past week, they passed the bond package, which is going to create, opportunity to fix our roads, and a number of other things around the city.
All right, Jackie.
I think this film tax credit is going to be a bargaining chip in the budget negotiations in June. A small one, but certainly one that will be used to weigh the different interests.
Laura.
So there's a big Dayton, there's a public corruption case that is unfolding in Dayton. They've got 4 indictments of some high-profile Dayton guys, and there's going to be more to come. The Department of Justice says that they will have at least another wave of indictments coming.
All right. I think a provision should be for the film tax credit. If you're going to film a movie in a city like Cleveland, like the Marvel Comics, one of those Marvel Comics movies did, you have to say you're in Cleveland. They filmed it in Cleveland and made it look like New York City. So if you're going to film it in Ohio, it's got to be set in Ohio, in the movie anyway. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, Twitter, Facebook, and you can see each episode on your time. Watch us whenever you want by going to our website, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.